Poor man faces world champion, and intelligence shocks the crowd. Marcus Thompson was trembling slightly as he observed the movement around him. He had never set foot in such an elegant place, where every detail screamed money and power. But he knew this was the moment he had been waiting for years. That's when she appeared, exactly as he had seen in magazines and on television. Sarah Mitchell, only 24 years old, world chess champion for 3 consecutive years. Her dark hair was elegantly tied up, and she wore a red blazer that contrasted with the simplicity of his clothes. "Excuse me, but I think you're in the wrong place," said a man in a suit, approaching Marcus. "This is the Elite Chess Club of New York. We have a private event today." Marcus took a deep breath and pulled a crumpled paper from his pants pocket. "I have a registration. I want to challenge the world champion to a match." The man in the suit looked at the paper, then looked Marcus up and down. His clothes were clean but clearly worn by time. His shoes had some poorly disguised holes, and his shirt had been washed so many times it had lost its original color. "Mr. The man checked the paper. "Thompson, do you understand this is not a joke? Mrs. Mitchell is a world-renowned professional." "I know very well who she is," replied Marcus, his voice firm despite his nerves. "And I also know that anyone can challenge a champion. It's in the rules." Sarah, who had been observing the conversation from a distance, approached. Her eyes had a gleam of curiosity mixed with arrogance. "It's all right, Richard," she said to the man in the suit, who was apparently the club director. "Let's see what this gentleman has to offer." Richard hesitated. "Sarah, are you sure? This could be embarrassing for everyone involved." "Embarrassing for whom?" Marcus asked, and for the first time his voice showed a hint of irritation. "For you who think intelligence comes with money." A murmur ran through the hall. Several elegant people had stopped their conversations to observe the situation. Marcus could feel the judgmental looks, the poorly disguised expressions of disdain. Sarah smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Interesting. And tell me, Mr. Thompson, where did you learn to play chess? In some sophisticated club like this?" "I taught myself," Marcus replied simply. "Yourself?" Sarah repeated, raising her voice so others could hear. "How romantic. And how much time do you dedicate to studying the game? A few hours a week?" Marcus paused for a moment before answering. "About 6 hours a day for the last 15 years. Sarah's smile wavered slightly. 6 hours a day was more than many professionals dedicated to study. "6 hours?" she asked, now in a more serious tone. "And what do you do for work?" "I'm a janitor. I was a janitor," Marcus corrected himself. "I worked the night shift in a commercial building. I had a lot of free time between rounds." "Was?" Richard asked. "They fired me last week. They said I was too distracted, that my performance had dropped." Marcus didn't mention that he had been fired because he spent the early morning hours studying chess games in old books he found in the offices instead of cleaning with the expected efficiency. "I see," said Sarah, regaining her confidence. "And how many official tournaments have you participated in?" "None." The answer fell like a bomb in the hall. Some people laughed openly. Richard shook his head, clearly thinking this was a waste of time. "No tournaments?" Sarah repeated, incredulous. "You're telling me you've never played an official match and you want to challenge me?" "That's right. But that's ridiculous," exclaimed a woman from the crowd. "How can anyone think they can face a world champion without any experience?" Marcus turned to the woman. "Have you ever seen a bricklayer working, Mrs.? He doesn't need an engineering degree to know how to lay a wall. Some things we learn by living, not by studying in expensive books." The comparison provoked more laughter, but some were more nervous this time. There was something in Marcus's calm that was beginning to bother some of those present. "Very well," said Sarah, clapping once to get attention. "Let's settle this quickly. 1 game, no time limit, just to satisfy your curiosity. But I want to make it clear this is not an official tournament, it's just entertainment." Richard quickly set up a board in the center of the main hall. The chairs were arranged so the audience could follow the game. Marcus noticed there were at least 50 people present, all elegantly dressed, all obviously belonging to a very different social class than his. "White or black?" asked Sarah, already seated in her chair. "It doesn't matter," Marcus replied, sitting on the other side of the board. How generous, Sarah said sarcastically, taking the white pieces. I'll start then. She moved her king's pawn 2 squares forward, a classic and safe opening. Marcus watched the move for a few seconds, then responded by moving his own king's pawn. One buntwant e4, e5, commented a man in the audience, who apparently understood chess notation. Classical Italian defense. Sarah continued with bc4, developing the bishop quickly. Marcus responded with nc6, developing the knight. The first moves were quick and predictable, exactly what any beginner would do. Murmured Sarah after the 5th move. At least he knows the basic openings. But it was on the 7th move that something changed. Marcus executed a move that made Sarah pause and look at the board more carefully. It was technically correct, but there was a subtlety in the position she hadn't immediately perceived. Interesting, she murmured, more to herself than to anyone else. What is it? Asked Richard, who was standing observing next to the board. Nothing, just... Sarah studied the position more carefully. It's a solid move. In fact, it was more than solid. It was perfect. Marcus had found the only move that maintained pressure on Sarah's position without committing defensively. It was the kind of move that required not just technical knowledge, but deep intuition about the dynamics of the game. The next moves developed at a slower pace. Sarah began to think longer before each move, while Marcus continued playing with the same calm as always. How long are you thinking about each move? She asked after 15 minutes of play. I'm not counting, Marcus replied. I'm just seeing what the board tells me. The answer irritated Sarah. It was almost poetic, as if the game were something natural for him. Instead of an exact science she had methodically studied her entire life. On the 20th move, Marcus did something that left half the audience speechless. He sacrificed a bishop for no apparent reason, giving away material for free to Sarah. He made a terrible mistake, someone whispered in the audience. Finally, said Sarah, capturing the bishop with satisfaction. I was wondering when the inexperience would show. But 3 moves later, when Marcus moved his rook to a seemingly harmless position, Sarah realized she had fallen into a trap. The bishop sacrifice had not been a mistake. It had been preparation for something much deeper. My God, she murmured, realizing her own queen was in danger. What's the matter? Asked Richard, noticing the change in her expression. Sarah stopped speaking and studied the board intensely. He forced me to capture the bishop so he could position the rook this way. If I hadn't captured it, he wouldn't have achieved this position. Her perception was correct. Marcus had calculated 5 moves ahead, something even grandmasters had difficulty doing consistently, and he had done it while chatting casually, with no apparent effort. That's impossible, said a woman in the audience who apparently also understood chess. No one sacrifices material like that without being an experienced professional. Marcus heard the comment and smiled for the first time since he had arrived. You're right, Mum, I'm not a professional, but 15 years watching a board every night teaches you a lot. Watching? Sarah asked, still studying her compromised position. You said you taught yourself. How exactly? Marcus hesitated before answering. It was a story he had never told anyone. I worked in the same building for 15 years. On the 12th floor, there's a little chess school that operates during the day. Little Tommy Anderson School for Underprivileged Children. He paused as if unsure whether to continue. Go on, said Sarah, now genuinely curious. During cleaning, I always saw the chess books the teachers left on the tables. At first, it was just curiosity, you know. I had never seen those little drawings of the knights and rooks. Marcus moved his rook to another position, increasing the pressure on Sarah's queen even more. Then I started flipping through the books in the early mornings. There was an old board there, kind of broken, that the kids used. I would set up the positions I saw in the books and tried to understand what was happening. And no one noticed? Asked Richard. Mr. William, the doorman, knew, but he was cool with me. He said as long as I did my cleaning right, I could study all I wanted. The problem is, I started getting too into it. I'd stay until morning studying, slept little, came home tired. Marcus's voice grew quieter. My ex-wife Jennifer started complaining that I wasn't helping with the kids, said I was living in a dream world thinking about little games instead of getting a better job. I couldn't explain to her that it wasn't just a little game. Sarah made her move, saving the Queen but conceding important material in exchange. She was officially at a disadvantage for the first time in the match. "And what happened?" she asked, now completely engaged in the story. "She gave me an ultimatum. Either I stopped with chess or she would leave with the kids. Marcus moved a simple pawn, but the move created a new threat that took Sarah several minutes to perceive. "And you chose chess?" asked a woman from the audience with a tone of disapproval. "No," Marcus answered firmly. "I chose the kids. I stopped studying for 2 years." The hall fell silent. No one had expected that answer. But the separation happened anyway. Jennifer said I had changed, that I was no longer the same man she married. She took our children, Daniel and Emily, to Washington, D.C., where her mother lives. It's been 3 years since I've seen them. The pain in Marcus's voice was palpable. Sarah felt a tightness in her chest, something she hadn't expected to feel. "That's when I went back to chess. I had nothing left to lose." "And did you get your job back?" asked Richard, with a kindness he hadn't shown before. Mr. William had retired. The new doorman didn't like seeing me messing with the books. He started pressuring me, saying I was there to clean, not to study. My work really started to get sloppy. Last week he reported me to the boss and I was let go. Marcus made another move, this time sacrificing a knight. The audience collectively gasped. "There he goes again," someone commented. But Sarah didn't capture the knight immediately. She had learned to distrust Marcus's sacrifices. She studied the position carefully, looking for the trap. "Why did you come here today?" she asked while analyzing the board. "Because I need money," Marcus replied with brutal honesty. "I'm 2 months behind on rent. If I can prove I play well enough, maybe someone will hire me as a private tutor." The confession created discomfort in the hall. It was a raw reminder that not everyone there had the financial security of those present. "But why me? Why the world champion?" Marcus looked into her eyes for the first time since the match began. "Because if I can give you a hard time in a game, anyone will believe I know how to play." The simplicity of the logic was irrefutable. Sarah finally captured the knight, but Marcus immediately moved his rook to a position that created multiple simultaneous threats. "Good Lord," murmured Sarah, realizing she had fallen into another trap even more elaborate than the first. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The position on the board had become extremely complex. Sarah had more material, but Marcus's pieces were coordinated in a way that created constant threats. It was as if he could see 3 moves ahead with the same ease she saw 1. "How is this possible?" whispered a man in the audience, whom Sarah recognized as Master Charles, one of the few American grandmasters. "He's playing as if he had decades of tournament experience." Master Charles approached the board and studied the position for a few minutes. "Sarah," he whispered low enough for only her to hear, "you need to be careful. This position is extremely dangerous. He has full compensation for the sacrificed material." "I know," she replied, also in whispers. "But how did he manage to reach this position?" "It doesn't make sense." Marcus watched their conversation without showing concern. In fact, he seemed almost relaxed, as if the tension didn't affect him. "You can talk freely," he said. "I don't mind. I know you find it strange that I can play like this." Sarah blushed slightly at being caught whispering. "Sorry, it's just, well, it's unusual." "I imagine," Marcus said with a half-smile. 15 years is a long time to study, even if alone. And I had good teachers." "Teachers?" asked Richard. "I thought you said you learned by yourself." "I learned by myself. But the books were written by the best players in history. Kasparov, Capablanca, Alekhine, Petrosian. They all taught me, without even knowing it." Marcus paused and pointed to a bookshelf on the club walls. "You have a beautiful library here, but I bet most members have never touched those classic books. They prefer modern analysis, computers, the latest novelties. I had no choice. I only had the old books from school. He moved a simple piece, but the move revealed a new tactic Sarah hadn't foreseen. And do you know the advantage of studying only the classics? Marcus continued. They taught me to see patterns, not just moves. To understand the soul of the game, not just the technique. The audience was now completely silent. What had started as entertainment at the expense of a poor man had transformed into something much deeper. Sarah made her next move after 20 minutes of thought. It was the best possible defense in the position, but still left Marcus with the initiative. "May I ask a question?" she said. "Of course." "Why have you never tried to play officially before? With this level, you could have had a career in chess." Marcus laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "Career? Miss, take a good look at me. Do you think someone like me would have been accepted in those clubs 15 years ago? Do you think I would have had money for registrations, travel, lodging?" He gestured to the elegant hall around them. "This place is beautiful, but it's not for people like me. And that's okay. I'm not complaining. I'm just explaining." The remark created an awkward silence. Several people in the audience seemed uncomfortable with the raw truth Marcus had exposed. "But it has changed, right?" said a young voice near the door. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. It was a girl of about 10, dressed in simple but clean clothes. "Emily," Marcus said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I came to support you, Uncle Marcus," the girl replied, approaching. "Teacher Anna said you were going to play against the world champion." Richard approached the girl. "I'm sorry, but this is a private event. You can't—" "She can stay," Marcus interrupted. "Emily is one of the students from the school where I worked. One of the best, actually." The girl smiled and found a place to sit on the floor near the board. "Uncle Marcus taught me a lot," she said to Sarah. "He always stayed after class to show me new moves." "After class?" Sarah asked, confused. "But you said you worked at night." Marcus seemed uncomfortable. Sometimes I arrived early for work." "Not sometimes," Emily corrected with the honesty of children. "Every day. You always arrived 2 hours early and stayed to teach us." The revelation completely changed the atmosphere in the hall. Marcus wasn't just studying chess alone at night, he was also teaching children voluntarily, without receiving anything in return. "Why didn't you mention that?" asked Sarah. "I didn't think it was important. Anyone would do the same thing." "No," said Master Charles, who had remained silent. "They wouldn't. Teaching is harder than learning. It requires patience, deep knowledge, the ability to explain complex concepts simply." Marcus made his next move, and this time it was Master Charles who sighed in admiration. "Magnificent," he murmured. "It's a pure Petrosian move, subtle positional pressure." "Who is Petrosian?" asked Emily. "He was an Armenian world champion," Marcus explained as Sarah studied the board. "He played differently from everyone else. He didn't look for direct attacks, but created small advantages that grew little by little, like a tree getting stronger." The explanation, simple but profound, again demonstrated Marcus's teaching ability. Emily nodded as if she understood perfectly. Sarah finally moved her piece, but it was clear she was in trouble. Her material advantage had practically disappeared, and Marcus's position was becoming dominant. "Uncle Marcus," said Emily, "tell her about the time you played against 5 people at the same time." "Emily, no," Marcus tried to interrupt. "He played against 5 teachers from the school at the same time, blindfolded," the girl continued excitedly, "and he beat them all." The audience reacted with surprise. Playing blindfolded simultaneous games was something only grandmasters could do. "Is that true?" asked Sarah, now with genuine respect in her voice. Marcus sighed. "It was just a game. The teachers weren't serious players." "Teacher Anna said you memorized all the positions in your head," Emily insisted. She said she'd never seen anything like it. Master Charles moved even closer to the board. "Marcus," he said, using his first name for the first time, "do you have any idea what that means? Eidetic memory for chess is extremely rare. Combined with positional intuition, you could be an extraordinary natural talent." The word talent echoed through the hall. It was something that completely changed the perspective of the situation. He wasn't just a poor man trying his luck. He was possibly a chess genius who had remained hidden by social circumstances. Sarah made her next move with slightly trembling hands. For the first time in years, she was genuinely nervous during a match. "May I ask you something?" said Marcus. "Of course." "Do you like playing chess?" The question caught Sarah by surprise. "Of course I like it. I'm a professional." "That's not what I asked," Marcus said gently. "I asked if you enjoy it. If you feel pleasure when you move the pieces, if you're happy when you discover a beautiful move." Sarah stopped studying the board and looked at Marcus. "Why are you asking that?" "Because I see a lot of tension in you, a lot of pressure. It doesn't seem like you're having fun." The observation hit a sensitive spot. Sarah had started playing chess for pleasure, but in recent years the weight of being world champion had turned every game into a matter of professional survival. "It's hard to have fun when everyone expects you to be perfect," she admitted. "I understand," Marcus said, making a move that created a new threat. "But chess isn't about perfection. It's about discovery. Every position is a new mystery to solve." He pointed to the board. "Look at this position. It's unique. In the entire history of chess, this exact same situation has never existed before. We are the first two human beings to see it. Isn't that magical?" The way Marcus talked about the game touched something deep in Sarah. It was the same passion she had felt as a child, before the pressures and expectations. "How do you manage to keep that purity?" she asked. "Because I have nothing to lose," Marcus replied honestly. "When you have no expectations from others, you can only be pleasantly surprised." Sarah made her next move almost automatically, but Marcus noticed she was lost in thought. "You want to know the truth?" she said after a few moments. "Sometimes I dream of being able to play like that, without pressure, just for the pleasure of discovering what the pieces can do. Why don't you? Because I have sponsors, contracts, a reputation. If I lose a few games, I could lose everything." Marcus studied her face before making his next move. "What if I told you you've already lost the most important thing?" "What do you mean?" "You've lost the joy. Chess has become compulsory work instead of voluntary art." The move Marcus made next was of stunning beauty, a rook sacrifice that opened lines for a devastating attack. The audience reacted with audible admiration. "Bravo!" exclaimed Master Charles. "That is pure art." Sarah looked at the position and realized she was lost. There was no adequate defense against the multiple threats Marcus had created. "You're going to checkmate me," she said, more as a statement than a question. "In 5 moves," Marcus confirmed gently. But instead of continuing to play, Sarah stopped and looked at him. "May I make a proposal?" "Of course." "I will acknowledge your victory, but I don't want this to end here." Marcus tilted his head, curious. "What do you have in mind?" "I want to hire you. As a coach, as a training partner, I don't know. You teach me this pure passion for the game, and I teach you how the professional world works." The proposal surprised the entire hall. A world champion offering a partnership to a man she had just met. "I don't know," Marcus began. "And there's more," Sarah continued. "I want to sponsor a project, a real chess school, not just for underprivileged children, but for anyone who wants to learn to play with passion, regardless of their financial situation." Emily jumped with excitement. "Really? A big chess school?" "Really?" Sarah smiled for the first time since the start of the match. "And Uncle Marcus would be the educational director." Marcus fell silent for a long moment, looking at the board where his victory was assured. "There's one condition," he finally said. "What?" "The school can't have a dress code, no enrollment fee, and anyone can enter no matter how they're dressed." Sarah extended her hand. "Deal." Marcus shook her hand, and all the tension in the hall dissolved into applause, but the loudest applause came from Emily, who was beaming with happiness. "Are you going to finish the match now?" the girl asked. Marcus and Sarah looked at each other and laughed. "No need," said Sarah. "I've already learned everything I needed to learn today." "Me too," agreed Marcus. Richard, who had observed the entire transformation in silence, approached. "Mr. Marcus, would you like to become a member of our club? As a special guest, of course." Marcus looked around the elegant hall, then at his simple clothes, then at Emily. "Thank you, but I think my place is in a different kind of club, one where anyone can enter." And so what had begun as a humiliating attempt to prove worth had transformed into something much larger. Marcus hadn't just won a chess game, he had overcome prejudices, broken social barriers, and found a partner who shared his true passion for the game. But the story was far from over. In the following months, many surprises still awaited everyone involved. 3 months after the match at the elite chess club, Marcus found himself in a situation he never imagined possible. The chess school Sarah had proposed was becoming a reality, but in a very different way than either of them had planned. "Uncle Marcus, the building owner said it can't be here," said Emily, entering the makeshift room where Marcus was trying to organize the first boards. "Why?" he asked, already fearing the answer. "She said it will attract all sorts of people, that it will lower the value of the apartments." Marcus sighed. It was the 5th location they had tried to rent, and the 5th refusal they had received. Apparently, the idea of a chess school open to everyone wasn't well received by the city's property owners. "What about Sarah? Does she know?" "She's on her way. Said she has news." 15 minutes later, Sarah arrived with an expression Marcus had learned to recognize. She was determined to solve a problem. "I got a place," she announced. "Where?" "My house." Marcus looked at her in surprise. "Your house? Sarah, that's crazy. You live in a mansion on the Upper East Side. Your neighbors will have a fit." "So what?" she replied, smiling. "My house, my rules." But Marcus knew Sarah well enough to sense there was more behind the proposal. "What happened?" he asked. Sarah hesitated before answering. "My sponsors cancelled the contract." "What do you mean?" "They said my association with people from different social levels was damaging my image, that a world champion needs to maintain a certain exclusivity." The revelation hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." "No," she said firmly. "It's the best thing that's happened to me in years." "How can you say that? You lost your livelihood because of me." "Marcus," Sarah sat down beside him, "do you remember what you told me that first day? That I had lost the joy?" He nodded. "You were right. I had become a prisoner of my own success. I played chess not because I loved it, but because I had to. I was selling an image I didn't even believe in myself." Emily, who was listening to the conversation, approached. "But are you happy now?" "Happier than I've been in years," Sarah smiled. "And you know why? Because I discovered that chess can be a tool to change lives, not just to make money." Marcus still looked worried. "But how will you support yourself?" "I've already thought about that. I'll give private lessons to those who can pay, and with that money I'll keep the school free for those who can't. It's a sustainable model. I just need more students." "And if it doesn't work?" Sarah looked at him with a smile that Marcus had learned to fear. It was the smile she made when she was about to do something impulsive. "Then at least we will have tried to do something worthwhile." That's how the Discovery Chess School began operating in the living room of Sarah Mitchell's mansion, former world champion. The news spread quickly, first through social media, then through the newspapers. "World champion opens home to teach chess for free," Marcus read in the newspaper 2 weeks after the opening. "Former janitor becomes school director in Upper East Side mansion." "Don't you like the publicity?" asked Sarah, making coffee in the kitchen. "It's not that. It's just, it seems like a story too good to be true." "But it is true," said a familiar voice behind them. Marcus turned and saw Master Charles entering the kitchen. "Charles, what a surprise! What brings you here?" "I came to see if you need help," the Grandmaster said, "and I came to bring some interesting news." "What news?" Charles pulled up a chair and sat down with them. "The United States Chess Federation wants to formalize your school." "Formalize how?" asked Sarah. "They want to turn this project into a national program, community chess schools in various cities following the model you created." Marcus almost spilled his coffee. "A national program? But we can barely handle the 50 students we have here." "Exactly why?" Charles smiled. "You've proven the model works. In 2 weeks you have a waiting list of 300 people. Children, adults, seniors, people from all social classes learning together. Sarah and Marcus looked at each other. Both knew something like this could change their lives completely. "What would our part in this be?" asked Sarah. "You would be the general coordinators. You would travel across the country training other teachers, supervising the implementation of new schools, fixed salary, benefits, complete pedagogical autonomy." It was a tempting proposal, but Marcus had doubts. "And our students here? Who would take care of them?" "Ah," Charles smiled. "I forgot to mention, the Upper East Side School would be the pilot school, the main training center. You would continue to be based here, but with many more resources." For the rest of the afternoon, Charles detailed the proposal. It was ambitious but viable. The Federation had secured support from private companies and the state government. The budget would allow not only keeping the schools running, but also offering scholarships to young talents. "I need time to think," Marcus finally said. "Of course, but not too much time. They want an answer in a week." After Charles left, Marcus and Sarah were silent for a long moment. "Are you afraid?" she asked. "Terrified," he admitted. 6 months ago, I was an unemployed janitor. Now they want to turn me into a national education coordinator. It doesn't make sense." "It makes all the sense in the world," Sarah said. "You have something most educators have lost, genuine passion for teaching. And you? Are you afraid too?" "Yes, but it's a good fear. It's the fear that something amazing might happen if we rise to the challenge." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He walked through the halls of the house, thinking about Charles's proposal. It was a unique opportunity, but also an enormous responsibility. Around 3 in the morning, he found Sarah in the living room, studying a game on the computer. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "I'm analyzing that game of ours from the first day," she replied. "You know what I discovered?" "What?" "You made only one small mistake in the entire game. And even then, you found a way to turn that mistake into an advantage." Marcus sat down beside her. "Where are you going with this?" "I'm thinking maybe life works that way too. We make mistakes. We make decisions that seem bad at the time. But if you know how to play, you can turn any situation into an opportunity." "Are you talking about the Federation's proposal?" "I'm talking about everything. Your divorce, my fallout with the sponsors, your dismissal. Things that seem to destroy our lives, but that brought us to this moment." Marcus reflected on her words. "Sarah, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Why did you never marry?" "Sorry if that's too personal," she sighed. "Because I never found someone who truly understood me. My life has always been very complex, very different from normal. Men were interested in the world champion, not in Sarah the person. And now I know there are people in the world capable of looking beyond appearances," she said, looking directly at him. The statement created a moment of tension between them. Marcus realized there was something deeper happening there, something that went beyond their professional partnership. "Sarah, You don't have to say anything," she gently interrupted. "I just wanted you to know that these last few months have been the best of my life, regardless of what we decide about the Federation." Marcus felt his heart race. It had been a long time since he had felt this way about someone. "For me too," he admitted. "But the situation is complicated. I'm still officially married, even though I've been separated for 3 years, and we have a considerable age difference." "Marcus," Sarah said with a half smile, "you just defeated me in a chess game without ever having played professionally. Do you really believe age or paperwork will be insurmountable problems for us?" Her logic was irrefutable. They had overcome much bigger obstacles than these. "You're right," he said, "but still, I think it's better if we take it slow. Easy does it." "I agree. We have time." The next morning, Marcus woke up with a clarity he hadn't felt in years. He knew exactly what he needed to do. He called Charles before 8 o'clock. "I accept the proposal," he said without preamble. "Excellent. And Sarah? Let me talk to her." He found Sarah in the kitchen, drinking coffee and reading news on her tablet. "I've decided to accept the Federation's proposal," he announced. She looked at him for a moment, then smiled. "Me too." "I'm not even going to ask how you knew I'd accept." "Marcus," she laughed, "after 3 months living with you, I've learned to anticipate your moves. You can't resist an opportunity to help more people. They spent the rest of the morning making plans, discussing details, imagining what it would be like to travel across the country setting up chess schools. It was exciting and scary at the same time. "There's one thing I don't understand," Marcus said after a while. "What?" "Why did the Federation choose us, of all people? There are much more experienced educators, grandmasters with better resumes." Sarah thought for a moment before answering. "I think that's exactly why. We're not the obvious choice. My story of breaking social barriers, your ability to teach with passion, maybe they needed people willing to do things differently." "Or maybe," said a voice behind them, "it's because you've proven that chess isn't about status, it's about humanity." They turned and saw Emily entering the kitchen, accompanied by her mother. "Emily," Marcus smiled. "How did you manage to get here so early?" "My mother brought me," the girl answered. "She wanted to talk to you." Emily's mother, a woman of about 40 dressed in simple work clothes, seemed nervous. "Sorry to bother you," she said. "I'm Sandra, Emily's mother. I wanted to thank you for what you did for her." "We didn't do anything special," said Sarah. "Emily is an exceptional student." "It's more than that," Sandra continued. "My daughter has completely changed since she started coming here. She's more confident, getting better grades in school, dreaming about the future. You gave her hope back." Marcus was moved by her words. "She is special, Mrs. Sandra. She has an impressive natural talent." "And that's why I wanted to talk to you," Sandra said, taking a deep breath. "I heard you're going to coordinate a national chess program." "That's true. I wanted to know if it would be possible for Emily to be part of something bigger. She talks every day about tournaments, about competing professionally. I don't understand any of it, but I see it's important to her." Sarah and Marcus exchanged glances. They had discussed Emily's potential several times, but never from a professional development perspective. "Mrs. Sandra," said Sarah, "Emily really does have a lot of talent, but professional development in chess requires investment, time, intensive dedication." "I know I don't have the financial means," Sandra interrupted. "I work as a cleaner in 3 different houses. But if there's any scholarship program, any way to help—" Marcus stood up and put his hand on Sandra's shoulder. "Mrs. Sandra, if it's up to us, Emily will have every opportunity she deserves. The national program will include exactly that, identifying and developing talent, regardless of financial situation." Sandra's eyes filled with tears. "You would really do that?" "Not only will we do it," said Sarah, "but Emily will be one of our first pilot cases. We want to prove that talent can flourish anywhere." Emily, who had been listening to the conversation in silence, jumped for joy. "Really? I'll get to play in real tournaments?" "More than that," Marcus smiled. "You're going to help us train other teachers. You'll teach other children. You'll be our junior ambassador for the project." Emily's happiness was contagious. Sandra hugged Sarah and Marcus with tears in her eyes, and for a moment everyone felt they were part of something much bigger than just a chess school. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. 1 year after the first meeting at the Elite Chess Club, Marcus found himself in Washington, D.C., in a meeting room at the Department of Education, presenting the results of the first year of the Chess for Everyone program. "In 12 months, he said to an audience of officials and educators, "we have established 62 community chess schools in 17 American states. We have directly served over 8,000 students and trained 350 teachers." The numbers were impressive, but Marcus knew that behind every statistic were transformative human stories. "But the most important results," he continued, "don't appear in the numbers. They appear in the restored self-esteem, the developed discipline, the improved concentration skills, the promoted social inclusion." In the audience, Sarah watched with pride. Marcus had transformed from a shy, insecure man into a confident, articulate educator. The experience of traveling across the country, encountering diverse realities, and solving complex problems had developed in him a natural leadership ability. "Mr. Marcus," said one of the officials present, What was the biggest challenge you faced in this first year? Marcus thought for a moment. Prejudice, not just social but conceptual. Many people still believe chess is for the intellectual elite, that ordinary people don't have the capacity to learn or teach the game. He clicked to the next slide of the presentation, which showed photos of teachers in action. A butcher teaching children in Miami, a housewife leading a group of seniors in Seattle, a construction worker coordinating a school tournament in Columbus. We discovered that some of the best teachers in the program are people without formal academic training. But they have something you can't teach in university, a genuine passion for teaching. The presentation continued for another 20 minutes, detailing methodologies, results, expansion plans. When it ended, the audience gave a standing ovation. "Mr. Marcus, Mrs. Sarah," said the Secretary of Education, approaching them after the presentation, "you've achieved something extraordinary. You've turned a simple idea into a national movement." "Thank you, Mr. Secretary," Sarah replied. "But this is just the beginning. We want to reach 1,000 schools in the next 5 years. And you have our full support for that. In fact, I have a proposal to make." Marcus and Sarah exchanged a look, curious. "We want to expand the program to other countries in Latin America. Would you be willing to coordinate an international project?" The proposal was tempting but also daunting. It would mean even greater responsibilities, longer trips, even more complex challenges. "Can we think it over carefully?" asked Marcus. "Of course, but don't take too long. There's a lot of interest from our neighbors." After the meeting, Marcus and Sarah walked the streets of Washington, D.C. in silence. They both knew they were facing a new crossroads. "Do you want to accept?" Sarah asked finally. "Part of me does. It would be amazing to take our methodology to other countries, but another part is afraid we're growing too fast." "Afraid of what, specifically?" Marcus stopped walking and looked at her. "Afraid of losing the essence of what we created. When we started, it was about passion, about personal transformation. Now we're talking about public policy, budgets, international management." Sarah understood the concern. She herself had gone through the process of seeing something she loved turn into a bureaucratic obligation. "Marcus, do you remember what you told me on the first day? That chess is about discovery, about solving unique mysteries." "I remember. Maybe our mission is exactly that, to discover how to keep the human essence in big projects. It's a new mystery to solve." They resumed walking, lost in thought. "There's something else," Marcus said after a while. "What?" "My kids." Sarah knew Marcus had reconnected with his children over the last year, but that the relationship was still complicated. "What about them?" "Daniel called me yesterday. He said he wants to come visit me during the holidays, that he's curious to see what this chess school everyone's talking about is like." "That's great." "It is, but it also made me think. If we accept the international project, I'll be traveling even more, less time available to rebuild my relationship with them." It was a genuine dilemma. Marcus had sacrificed his family once for his passion for chess. He didn't want to repeat the same mistake. "What if there was a way to balance everything?" asked Sarah. "How?" "What if we brought the kids to participate in the project? Daniel is 15, Emily is 13. They're at the perfect age to get interested in chess, to travel, to see the world." Marcus stopped again, this time with a look of surprise. "Are you suggesting they come live with us?" The word "us" hung in the air between them. It was the first time Marcus had verbalized their relationship as a unit. "Why not?" Sarah smiled. "We have a large house, enough resources, and it would be a unique educational experience for them. And Jennifer, she would never agree." "Have you even asked?" Marcus had to admit he hadn't. The relationship with his ex-wife had improved in recent months, especially after he began to have financial stability and professional recognition. "Sarah, this would change everything, our freedom, our work dynamic. It would change, but perhaps for the better. You always said education is about shaping people, not just teaching techniques. What better opportunity to practice that than with your own children?" That night, in the hotel in Washington, D.C., Marcus called Jennifer. "Hi, Jennifer. I need to talk to you about a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" she asked with cautious curiosity. Marcus explained the whole situation. the international project, the possibility of the children participating, the chance to rebuild their family relationship in a new way. "Marcus," Jennifer said after listening, "I admit I was wrong about you. I saw some news reports on television about your work. I'm proud of what you've become." The words moved Marcus deeply. It was the first time in years he had heard approval from his ex-wife. "Thank you, Jennifer. That means a lot to me. About your proposal, I need to talk to the children, but if they want to, I support it. As long as they can visit me regularly and I can keep up with their school progress. Of course, it would be a partnership, not a separation." After hanging up, Marcus was silent for a long time. Sarah, who had heard the whole conversation, approached. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I'm about to play the most important game of my life," he replied. "And what game would that be?" "The game of being a father again, only this time, with the lessons I've learned." 2 weeks later, Marcus was at the New York airport waiting for Daniel and Emily to arrive. It was the first time he had seen them in 4 years, and he was as nervous as a teenager on a first date. When they appeared in the arrivals area, Marcus almost didn't recognize them. Daniel had grown considerably and was now almost as tall as his father. Emily had transformed from a child into a teenager. "Dad!" Emily shouted, running to hug him. The hug was long and emotional. Daniel approached more slowly, still cautious, but also gave a sincere hug. "How was the trip?" Marcus asked, trying to disguise the emotion in his voice. "Good," said Daniel. "I'm curious to see this famous school." "And Sarah?" asked Emily. "Where is she?" "She's at home preparing lunch. She was anxious to meet you." On the way to the Upper East Side, the children asked 1,000 questions about their father's work, about the school, about what it was like to live in such a big house. "Dad," Emily said at one point, "are you happy?" The direct question took Marcus by surprise. "Very happy, sweetie." "Why?" "Because you seem different. On TV, you spoke with a confidence I'd never seen before." Daniel agreed. "It's true, you were always more shy, more, insecure." Marcus smiled. "People change, kids, especially when they find something they love to do." "And you love teaching chess?" "I do, but it's not just that. I love seeing people discover abilities they didn't know they had. I love seeing barriers being broken. I love making a difference in people's lives." When they arrived home, Sarah greeted them with a warm but respectful smile. Marcus had asked her not to try to be a new mother, just an adult friend who happened to live in the same house. "Daniel, Emily," she said, "it's a pleasure to meet you. Your father talks about you all the time." "He does?" Emily asked, surprised. "Talks about what?" "He talks about how you are the reason he tries so hard to be a better person. That everything he does is with the thought of being a father you can be proud of." Sarah's honesty touched the children. Marcus realized she had found exactly the right tone, respectful but warm. Lunch was a mutual discovery. Daniel and Emily asked smart questions about Sarah's work, about how the school functioned, about the plans for the international project. "Do you want to see the school in action?" asked Sarah after lunch. "Of course," said Emily. "Then let's go. We have class at 2 o'clock. When they entered the main room of the house, transformed into a classroom, Marcus saw the astonishment on his children's faces. There were about 20 people of varying ages, children, teenagers, adults, seniors, all focused on their boards. "Wow," whispered Daniel. "It's true that anyone can learn." Emily, now 11 years old, and one of the program's youngest assistant instructors, approached. "Uncle Marcus, you brought visitors." "Emily, these are my children, Daniel and Emily." "Really?" Emily got excited. "Do you know how to play chess?" "A little," said Daniel. "I learned the basics at school." "Want to play a game with me?" For the next hour, Marcus watched his children interacting with the school's students. Emily was enchanted by a 70-year-old lady who had learned chess to exercise her mind. Daniel was impressed by how Emily explained complex concepts with simplicity. "Dad," said Emily in the late afternoon, "can I ask a question?" "Of course." "Why did you never teach us chess when we were little?" The question hit Marcus like a stab. It was one of his greatest guilts. Having been obsessed with chess, but never having shared that passion with his own children. "Because I was selfish," he answered honestly. "Chess was my personal refuge, my escape from reality. I didn't realize it could have been a bridge to bring me closer to you." "But can you teach us now?" Marcus looked at Sarah, who smiled encouragingly. "Of course I can. If you want." "We do," said Daniel, "and we want to understand why it's so important to you." That night, after the children went to sleep, Marcus and Sarah talked about future plans. "They are special," said Sarah. "Smart, curious, well-mannered. Jennifer did a good job." "She did, better than I deserved at the time." "Marcus, stop punishing yourself for the past. What matters is what you do from now on." "You're right. And about the international project." Sarah took a deep breath. "I think we should accept, but with conditions." "What conditions?" "First, the children come with us whenever possible. Second, we create a structure that allows remote work when necessary. Third, we set a clear boundary between personal and professional life." "You've thought of everything. I learned from you. Every position is a mystery to solve. Remember." The next day, Marcus called the Department of Education and accepted coordinating the international project, with the conditions proposed by Sarah. 3 months later, they were in Chicago, inaugurating Argentina's first community chess school. Daniel and Emily were with them, serving as young ambassadors for the program. "Dad," said Emily in Spanish, which she had learned quickly, "look how many people came to see the school." Marcus smiled, seeing how his daughter had adapted to the international environment. Daniel had also flourished, developing an interest not only in chess but in the logistics and organization of the events. "Dad," Daniel said during a break in the inauguration, "I want to ask you something." "What, son?" "I want to become an official instructor for the program. I want to do this professionally." The declaration surprised Marcus. "Daniel, you're only 15. You need to finish your studies. Think about a stable career." "Dad," Daniel interrupted, "you were 50 when you changed careers. I'm 15. I have much more time to develop in this area." The son's logic was irrefutable. Marcus realized he was repeating the same prejudices he had faced. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. I want to help spread what you've created around the world." Emily approached the conversation. "I want to be part of it too. Not as an instructor, but as a coordinator. I like organizing events, handling the administrative side." Marcus looked at his children with a mixture of pride and astonishment. In just a few months, they had not only reconciled as a family, but discovered professional callings. "Sarah," he called, "you need to hear this." When Sarah joined the conversation and heard the teenagers' plans, her reaction was pure enthusiasm. "Do you know what this means?" she said. "It means we've created not just a school, but a dynasty, a family legacy." "How so?" asked Emily. "You will carry this work to the next generation. You will develop methodologies we haven't even imagined. You will reach places we never could." The conversation was interrupted by a young Argentine man who approached timidly. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm a journalist from the newspaper The Times. I would like to interview you." "Of course," said Marcus. "About what specifically?" "About how a family can change the world by playing chess." The question made Marcus reflect on the journey they had traveled. From an unemployed janitor to an international coordinator, from a lonely man to a recovered father, from a solitary passion to a family mission. During the interview, the journalist asked a question none of them expected. "Mr. Marcus, if you could go back to the moment you first entered the elite chess club of New York, would you do anything differently?" Marcus thought for a long moment. "Yes," he finally said. "I would have brought my children with me." The answer made the whole family smile. It was the perfect synthesis of everything they had learned, that talent without affection is incomplete, that success without family is empty, that teaching without love is impossible. After the interview, they walked the streets of Chicago like a normal family, but knowing they carried something special, proof that dreams can become reality when they meet the right people at the right time. "Dad," said Emily as they watched the city's movement, "now I understand why you fell in love with chess. Why? Because every move creates infinite possibilities. like life. Marcus hugged his daughter, knowing she had understood not just the game, but the philosophy behind everything they had built. 2 years after the first meeting at the Elite Chess Club of New York, Marcus Thompson found himself in a situation he never imagined possible. He was being honored by the President of the United States as Educator of the Year in a ceremony in Washington, D.C. "Mr. Marcus Thompson," the President said to the audience of officials and journalists, "represents the best of the American spirit, the ability to turn adversity into opportunity, to use individual talents to benefit society as a whole." In the audience, Sarah held Emily's hand as she watched the ceremony. Daniel was beside them, filming everything with his phone to show Jennifer and the school students later. "The Chess for Everyone program," the President continued, "now serves over 50,000 people in 16 countries across Latin America. More important than the numbers, however, are the lives transformed, the communities united, the social barriers broken." Marcus approached the microphone for his acceptance speech. His nerves had disappeared. After 2 years of public speaking, presenting projects, coordinating international teams, he had developed a natural confidence. "Mr. President, distinguished authorities, friends," he began, "this honor does not belong to me alone. It belongs to every person who believed that chess is much more than a game." He paused, searching for Sarah in the audience. "It belongs to Sarah Mitchell, who chose to use her talent to democratize knowledge instead of just accumulating personal victories. It belongs to my children, Daniel and Emily, who taught me that it is possible to rebuild a family on new and more solid foundations." His voice grew more emotional. "It belongs to Emily, a girl from the inner city who now coordinates chess schools in 3 countries and proves that talent knows no address. It belongs to every volunteer teacher, every dedicated student, every family that decided to believe that education can transform destinies." The auditorium erupted in applause. Marcus continued when silence returned. "But most of all, this honor belongs to all the people who were ever underestimated because of their appearance, their origin, their financial situation. To all who know that intelligence and dignity have no social class." When Marcus left the stage, he was surrounded by journalists wanting interviews. But his attention was focused on the family waiting for him. "Dad," said Daniel, "your speech was perfect." "I agree," said Emily, "especially the part about Mom. She would have loved to hear it." "Do you think she watched on television?" "Absolutely," laughed Sarah, "and she probably recorded it to watch again." During the cocktail reception after the ceremony, Marcus was approached by an elegant man who introduced himself as the director of an international educational foundation. "Mr. Marcus, I would like to make a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" "Our foundation wants to fund the expansion of the Chess for Everyone program to Africa and Asia. We're talking about an investment of $50 million over 5 years. The figure left Marcus momentarily speechless. "That is a considerable amount," he said finally, "and the return would also be considerable. We're talking about reaching over 1 million people, creating thousands of jobs, establishing an educational model that can be replicated in dozens of countries." Marcus looked at Sarah, who had approached the conversation. "We need time to analyze the proposal," she said diplomatically. "Of course. But I'd like you to know, you have created something revolutionary, a model of inclusive education that is attracting worldwide attention." After the man walked away, Marcus and Sarah walked in silence through the gardens of the White House. $50 million, said Marcus, still processing the information. "That's enough money to change the world. Literally. Or to corrupt us, turn our educational mission into a multinational teaching corporation." Sarah understood the concern. Both had seen social projects lose their soul when they grew too big, when numbers became more important than people. "What do you want to do?" Marcus stopped walking and looked at the Washington, D.C. skyline. "I want to talk with our family, with Daniel, with Emily, with all the teachers who trust us. I want to make a collective decision, not an individual one, like in a team chess match." "Exactly, where every piece has its role, but the ultimate goal is common." Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out, now continuing. 2 weeks later, Marcus had organized a video conference connecting chess school coordinators from 16 countries. It was a historic meeting, the first global assembly of the Chess for Everyone program. "Friends," said Marcus, opening the meeting, "you know the proposal we received, $50 million for global expansion. It is a unique opportunity, but also a considerable risk." On the screen, dozens of familiar faces appeared in small windows. The butcher from Miami, who coordinated 3 schools in the Southeast, the retired teacher from Seattle, who had created her own method for teaching the elderly, the young engineer from Portland who adapted the program for rural communities. "Uncle Marcus," said Emily, now 13 years old and representing the schools of the state of New York, "what is your specific concern?" "My concern is that the money changes our nature, that we become a bureaucratic institution instead of a people's movement." A man with a graying beard, coordinator of the Argentine schools, virtually raised his hand. "Marcus, may I give my opinion as someone who has seen social projects die from financial indigestion?" "Of course, Charles. The problem is never the money itself. The problem is when we lose sight of our roots. If we keep our essence, free teaching, passionate teachers, focus on personal transformation, the money will just be a tool." A young woman from Phoenix, Peru, agreed. "Charles is right. In my experience here, what works is keeping the schools small and personal, even as the program grows. Every student needs to feel seen, every teacher needs to feel valued." The discussion continued for 2 hours. Each coordinator brought their perspective, their experiences, their fears and hopes. Marcus realized he had created not just an educational program, but a true international community. "Shall we vote?" suggested Sarah, who was moderating the meeting beside him. "Yes. The question is simple. Should we accept the $50 million funding, with the commitment to keep our educational philosophy intact?" The result was surprising. 87% in favor, 13% against, 0% abstentions. "Approve then," said Marcus. "But I want to add a condition that wasn't in the original proposal." "What?" asked Emily. "I want every school to maintain total local autonomy. No pedagogical decisions will be made centrally. Each community adapts the method to its needs." The proposal was met with enthusiasm. It was the guarantee that the program would not become an educational franchise, but would remain an organic network of local initiatives. After the meeting, Marcus called the foundation director and communicated the decision, including the additional conditions. To his surprise, the man not only accepted but praised the concern for local autonomy. "Mr. Marcus," he said, "it is exactly this kind of thinking that convinced us to invest in you. Many educational organizations would accept the money without question. You questioned because you care more about the mission than the profit." The following months were of intense preparation. Marcus and Sarah traveled to South Africa, Kenya, India, and Thailand, studying local realities, identifying partners, adapting methodologies. "It's incredible how chess is universal," commented Sarah during a visit to a slum in Mumbai. "The children here react exactly like the ones from New York when they discover they can beat an adult in a game." "And the adults react the same too," laughed Marcus. "First suspicion, then curiosity, then total passion." In each country, they found stories that echoed their own experience. People underestimated by society, talents hidden by prejudice, communities lacking educational opportunities. "You know what impresses me the most?" said Daniel during a video call with the family. He was in New York, coordinating the American schools while his parents traveled. "What?" asked Marcus. "How the solutions are always local, even when the problem is global. At the South Bronx School, they created a method to deal with urban violence. In rural Alabama, they adapted it to the agricultural calendar. Every place finds its own way to make chess work." Daniel's observation showed he had deeply understood the program's philosophy. Marcus felt a paternal pride that went beyond the professional. "Daniel is right," said Emily, who was with them on the trip. "It's as if each school were a different piece on the board, but all playing for the same goal." 6 months after the start of the global expansion, Marcus received a call he wasn't expecting. It was Richard, the director of the Elite Chess Club of New York. "Marcus, I need to talk to you in person." It's about the club. What's wrong with the club? Asked Marcus with a hint of concern in his voice. It's better we talk face to face. Can you come here tomorrow? Marcus arrived at the club the next morning with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The place looked exactly the same as the day of his first meeting with Sarah, but now he felt completely different. Marcus, Richard greeted him with a warm handshake. Thank you for coming. Please have a seat. They sat in the same room where the famous match had taken place. Marcus, I'll get straight to the point. The club is going through a serious financial crisis. We've lost half our members in the last 2 years. I'm sorry to hear that. How can I help? Richard took a deep breath. We want to transform into a school in the Chess for Everyone program. The proposal completely caught Marcus by surprise. How so? We want to open our doors to the community, keep some activities exclusive for paying members, but dedicate most of our time and space to free instruction. Marcus was silent for a moment, processing the irony of the situation. Richard, do you remember how you treated me the first day I came here? I remember, and I'm ashamed. We were prejudiced, elitist, arrogant. That's exactly why we want to change. What changed your perspective? Richard stood up and pointed to a wall with several photos and newspaper clippings about the Chess for Everyone program. We've followed your work from the beginning. We saw that you achieved what we never could, making chess relevant to society. Our club was dying of irrelevance. You proved chess can be alive, transformative, inclusive. Marcus walked over to the wall and saw his own photo in a report about innovative education. And the other members? Do they agree with this change? Most do. Those who disagreed have already left. Only the people who truly care about chess, not social status, remain. Marcus thought about the proposal for a few minutes. It was a poetic twist. The club that had rejected him was now asking to be part of his mission. Richard, I accept the proposal, but with 2 conditions. What are they? First, no enrollment fee for the community activities. Second, anyone can enter no matter how they're dressed. Richard smiled. Those are exactly the conditions I expected. When can we start? Next week. But I want you to know, it won't be easy. There will be people from the slums mingling with business executives, street children learning alongside diplomats' kids. It will be messy, noisy, unpredictable. Marcus, Richard said sincerely, it will be exactly what this place needed. Real life. The transformation of the elite chess club was emblematic of the changes the program was promoting worldwide. In 6 months, what was a hermetic, elitist environment became a vibrant space where people from all backgrounds learned together. Dad, said Emily during a family lunch, did you see that Mrs. Sebastiana beat Mr. Mendez yesterday? The cleaning lady beat the retired judge? Laughed Sarah. Yes, and the best part is, he was super happy. He said he'd never thought of such a creative strategy. Marcus smiled, imagining the scene. It was exactly the kind of paradigm shift they had dreamed of. You know what moves me the most, Man, he said? It's seeing that we're not just teaching chess. We're creating spaces where different people can meet, respect each other, learn from one another. It's as if each school were a social laboratory, agreed Daniel. A place where we test if it's possible for different groups to coexist in harmony. Daniel's observation was prophetic. In the following years, many of the program's schools became natural community centers, spaces where social differences were temporarily suspended in the name of shared learning. 3 years after the famous match at the elite chess club, Marcus received a letter that deeply moved him. It was from Jennifer, his ex-wife. Marcus, I know our communication has always been difficult, but I need to write you this letter. Yesterday I watched your speech at the UN about inclusive education on television. I cried from start to finish, not from sadness but from pride. Remember when we fought because you were wasting time with chess? I was wrong, you weren't wasting time. You were planting seeds of something I couldn't see. Daniel calls me every week to tell me news about the work with you. Emily sends me photos of the countries she visits. They are flourishing in a way I never imagined possible, and I know this is the result of the education you are giving them. I want to apologize, not just for what happened between us, but for trying to stop you from being who you really were. Sarah called me last week. We talked for 2 hours. She told me how you speak of me, always with respect, always taking your own responsibility for the problems we had. That touched me deeply. I know you and she plan to marry officially. You have my full blessing. You make a beautiful couple, and more importantly, a perfect team. Thank you for becoming the man I always knew you could be. Thank you for giving our children an example of how to pursue dreams without losing character. Thank you for proving that it's possible to start over, even after 50. With affection and admiration, Jennifer Marcus read the letter 3 times, with tears in his eyes. It was the final reconciliation with his past, the peace he didn't know he was seeking. "Sarah!" he called. She appeared in the kitchen, drying her hands on her apron. "What is it? You're crying?" Marcus handed her the letter. After reading it, Sarah was also moved. "Marcus, this is beautiful. Jennifer is a special woman." "She is, and always was. The problem is I needed to grow up to be able to properly appreciate her." "And now? How do you feel?" Marcus looked out the kitchen window, where he saw Daniel teaching chess to a group of children in the garden, while Emily organized a blitz tournament with teenagers. "I feel like I finally understand what it truly means to be an adult." "How so?" "Being an adult isn't about stopping dreaming. It's about learning to dream together with other people. It's about using your talents to create opportunities for those you love." Sarah hugged Marcus from behind, resting her head on his shoulder. "You know something?" she said. "What?" "I think our next move should be to make our union official, not just for us, but to set an example for our students that mature love is possible." Marcus turned to face her. "Sarah Mitchell, are you proposing to me?" "I am," she smiled. "Marcus Thompson, will you marry me?" "On one condition." "What?" "That it's a ceremony where anyone can enter, regardless of how they're dressed." Sarah laughed out loud. "Deal, but with a counter-condition." "What?" "That the ceremony includes a symbolic chess game between the 2 of us." "To decide who runs the house?" Marcus joked. "No," Sarah said with a mischievous smile. "To show that in a good marriage, both sides can win at the same time." 6 months later, Marcus and Sarah married in a ceremony that made history. Held at the main headquarters of the school in the Upper East Side, it brought together over 500 guests from 15 different countries. Students, teachers, authorities, celebrities, but mostly ordinary people who had been touched by the Chess for Everyone program. "Dearly beloved," began the officiant, a Baptist pastor who was also a chess instructor, "we are here to celebrate not only the union of Marcus and Sarah, but also to celebrate the power of inclusive love, of shared knowledge, of transformative education." The speech was delivered in 3 languages, translated simultaneously so everyone could understand. Emily, now 15 years old and one of the event organizers, had insisted it be this way. "Marcus Thompson," said the officiant, "do you take Sarah to be your partner, not only in personal life but in the mission to democratize knowledge and break down social barriers?" "I do," replied Marcus, looking into Sarah's eyes. "Sarah Mitchell, do you take Marcus to be your partner not only in personal life but in the mission to use chess as a tool for social transformation?" "I do," she answered, with tears of joy. After the traditional words came the most anticipated moment, the symbolic chess match. A giant board was placed in the center of the garden, with pieces nearly a meter tall. Marcus and Sarah sat in elaborately decorated chairs, like the king and queen of an educational kingdom. "This match," explained Daniel, serving as the narrator, "will have no winners or losers. It will be a collaboration to find the most beautiful possible move." The newlyweds took turns making moves, creating not a battle, but a dance. Each move was discussed between them, celebrated by the audience, photographed by the journalists present. "Checkmate," shouted a child from the audience when they reached a prearranged final position. "No," Marcus gently corrected, "it's not checkmate. It's harmony. The 2 royal pieces are protecting each other." The explanation was followed by a standing ovation. It was the perfect metaphor for the marriage they were celebrating. During the party that followed, Marcus had a moment to speak alone with Jennifer, who had come from Washington, D.C., especially for the ceremony. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I wouldn't have missed it for the world," she replied. "Seeing Daniel and Emily so happy, seeing you fulfilled, seeing everything you've built, it's moving. Jennifer, I want you to know you will always have a special place in my life, not just as the mother of my children, but as the person who taught me important lessons about family." "What lessons?" "That true love sometimes means letting a person go so they can become who they need to be. You did that for me, even when it hurt." Jennifer was moved. "Marcus, you were always special. I just couldn't see it at the time. And now you can. Now I see that you are exactly the kind of person the world needs. Someone who uses their gifts to lift others up, not to lift themselves above others." The conversation was interrupted by Emily, who approached with a solemn expression. "Uncle Marcus, can I talk to you?" "Of course, Emily. What is it?" "I have an important proposal to make." Marcus smiled. Emily had developed a habit of making important proposals at significant moments. "I'm listening. I want to create a federation of young chess players from the countries where we have schools. An organization run by minors for minors." The proposal was ambitious, but Marcus knew Emily had the ability to achieve it. And what would be the goal of this federation? To prove that children can solve global problems if they have the right tools. Chess teaches us strategy, planning, patience. We want to use those skills for real social issues. What kinds of issues? Education in conflict zones, environmental sustainability, refugee integration. Problems that affect our generation, solved by our generation. Marcus looked at Sarah, who had come closer to listen to the conversation. "Emily," said Sarah, "your proposal is brilliant, but will you have support from the adults?" "We hope so," Emily smiled. "After all, you taught us that intelligence has no age. If we can learn chess from adults, adults can learn creative solutions from us." The logic was irrefutable. Marcus realized that Emily had internalized not just the techniques of chess, but the transformative philosophy he and Sarah tried to promote. "You have our full support," he said. "When do you start?" "Tomorrow. I've already scheduled a video conference with young leaders from 12 countries. We're going to create a global action plan." "Tomorrow?" Sarah laughed. "The day after our wedding." "Aunt Sarah," Emily said with the seriousness only teenagers can muster, "social revolution doesn't wait for a honeymoon." Marcus and Sarah laughed loudly. It was exactly the kind of remark that confirmed they had created not just a school, but a movement that transcended generations. Later that night, alone after all the guests had left, Marcus and Sarah sat in the garden of the house, contemplating the giant chessboard that was still set up. "Marcus," said Sarah, resting her head on his shoulder, "what do you think will happen in the coming years? I don't know. But I know that no matter what happens, we'll face it together, like a team. Like a perfect team, where each player knows the other's strength and weakness and uses that to create strategies neither could achieve alone." Sarah looked at the giant board, where the pieces remained in the final position of the symbolic game. "You know what moves me the most about this whole story?" "What?" "Knowing it started with you walking into that club, nervous and insecure, just wanting to prove you knew how to play chess. And now it's turned into an international movement that's changing how people think about education." "Actually," Marcus said thoughtfully, "I think it started long before that." "When?" "It started the first night I picked up a chess book at the school where I worked. In that moment, without knowing it, I was making a choice. To seek knowledge instead of settling for ignorance." "And why did you make that choice?" Marcus was silent for a moment, remembering those first days of discovery. "Because I always knew there was more in me than what my circumstances allowed me to show. Chess was just the channel I found to express it." "And now?" "Now I know that everyone has that more inside them. Our mission is to help people discover what their channel is." Sarah stood up and extended her hand to Marcus. "Come on, husband. Let's start our honeymoon by planning the next move." "Already?" Marcus laughed. "We haven't even finished getting married properly." "Marcus Thompson," she said with a smile he had learned to love. "Did you really think I'd marry someone who knows how to relax?" They went into the house laughing, knowing they were starting not just a marriage but a new phase of a mission that had grown far beyond any dream they could have had. In the bedroom before sleeping, Marcus found a gift on the bed, an old chess book with a dedication from Sarah. "To Marcus, who taught me that the most beautiful move is the one that opens possibilities for the opponent to win too. With eternal love and admiration, Sarah." Marcus opened the book and saw it was a first edition of My 60 Memorable Games by Bobby Fischer. In the margins, Sarah had annotated comments connecting the strategies of the grandmasters with the educational philosophies they had developed. "Sarah, this is," he began, moved. "It's your personal library beginning," she interrupted. "Every important person should have a library that reflects their soul. Yours will have books on chess and pedagogy, biography and philosophy, technique and poetry. And yours? It will be the same. We're a team, remember?" Marcus closed the book and hugged his wife, knowing he held in his hands much more than a gift. He held proof that he had found someone who understood not only his dreams, but also his unique way of dreaming. 5 years after the famous match at the Elite Chess Club of New York, Marcus Thompson was where he never imagined he would be, being interviewed on the most-watched television program in the United States, alongside world-renowned personalities. "Marcus," said the host, "you were chosen as one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. How does it feel knowing that a former janitor from New York now inspires educational policies in over 40 countries?" Marcus smiled, accustomed to this type of question by now, but still surprised by the scale his story had taken. "I feel humble and responsible," he replied. "Humble because I know all of this was only possible through the collaboration of thousands of people spread across the world. Responsible because the bigger the project gets, the more people place their hope in it." "And how is the family? Did your children follow in your footsteps?" Daniel is now the Director of International Operations for the program. He's 20 and already coordinates schools in 15 countries. Emily, who is 18, is finishing high school, but has already announced she wants to study pedagogy to develop new inclusive teaching methodologies. "And Emily, the girl who appears in several reports about you." Marcus smiled with paternal pride. "Emily is now 19 and is the president of the World Federation of Young Chess Players. The organization she created has already implemented projects in 60 countries. Last week, she was invited to speak at the UN General Assembly." Incredible. "And personally, how are things with Sarah?" "Sarah continues to be my partner in everything. Professionally, she developed a teaching methodology that is being studied at the best universities in the world. Personally, well, we've discovered that couples who play chess together have a huge advantage in resolving conflicts." The host laughed. "How so?" "When you're used to thinking 3 moves ahead, it becomes easier to anticipate misunderstandings and avoid them. And when you know that sometimes you need to sacrifice a piece to win the game, it becomes easier to yield in small arguments to preserve the overall harmony." "Speaking of the future, what are the next plans?" Marcus grew serious for a moment. "We are entering a new phase of the project. After proving that chess can democratize education, we want to prove that democratized education can solve complex social problems." "Can you give an example?" "Of course. In the favelas of Los Angeles, where we implemented schools 3 years ago, the school dropout rate fell by 70%. In rural communities of Colombia, former combatants are becoming chess teachers and agents of reconciliation. In India, we are using the program to integrate different castes in a single classroom." "And does it work?" "It works because chess creates a neutral territory. On the board, it doesn't matter if you are rich or poor, white or black, man or woman. It only matters if you think well and play with integrity." After the interview, Marcus was approached in the network's corridors by an elegant man who introduced himself as an ambassador from a European country. "Mr. Thompson, my government would like to invite you for a special mission." "What kind of mission?" "We have a region with historical ethnic conflicts, communities that have hated each other for decades, Children who grow up learning to hate their neighbors because of religious and cultural differences. We want to know if your educational model could help." Marcus was intrigued. "It's a complex situation. I have no training in international conflict resolution, but you have something better. Experience in making different people live together harmoniously. That's exactly what we need." Marcus asked for a few days to discuss the proposal with Sarah and the family. It was an opportunity to test the program in an extreme situation, but also a considerable risk. "What do you think?" he asked Sarah that night. "I think it's exactly the kind of challenge we're prepared for," she replied. "But we shouldn't go alone." "What do you mean?" "I think we should bring a multinational team. Emily and her federation, instructors from different countries, even some children who have already been through the program, show that integration is possible through a living example." The idea was brilliant. Instead of arriving as external experts, they would arrive as a practical demonstration that diversity can be harmonious. "And if it doesn't work," asked Marcus, "then at least we will have tried, and our attempt might inspire other people to find better solutions." 3 months later, Marcus found himself in a small town in the Appalachian region in a local school that had offered to host a pilot project. The atmosphere was tense. Appalachian and Cherokee families had agreed to participate, but kept to separate groups. "Good morning, everyone," Marcus began his first lesson, speaking in English with simultaneous translation. "My name is Marcus Thompson. I came from the United States to learn from you, not to teach you." The statement caused surprise. People expected an international expert, not someone who presented himself as a learner. "I learned chess at a school for underprivileged children," Marcus continued. "My most important teacher was a 10-year-old girl who showed me that intelligence has no nationality, religion, or age." He gestured to Emily, who stood up and waved to the audience. "Emily is now 19 and runs projects in more countries than I can visit. She will work directly with your young people, while I work with the adults." The strategy of dividing by age, not by ethnicity, was the first move to break the group's traditional barriers. During the first week, progress was slow. The Appalachian and Cherokee families participated in the activities, but kept their social distance. The children were less resistant than the adults, but still followed the patterns of segregation they had learned. It was Sarah who had the idea that changed everything. "Marcus," she said one night, "what if we organize a tournament where the teams are required to be mixed, Appalachians and Cherokees playing together against other mixed teams? Do you think they'll accept?" "We'll find out. But let's make an irresistible proposal. The winning team gets a trip to the United States to visit our schools." The proposal generated great discussion in both communities. Some parents categorically refused the idea of their children playing in partnership with the others, but others, especially the younger ones, were intrigued. "If my son plays well with an Appalachian," said a Cherokee mother, "that doesn't mean I agree with their politics." "Of course not," agreed Marcus. "It just means your son is learning to see people as individuals, not as representatives of groups." The tournament was organized for the 3rd week of the project. 8 mixed teams, each with 4 players of different ethnicities. Marcus and Sarah served as referees, with Emily coordinating the parallel activities. What happened during the tournament surprised even the organizers. "Richard, move the knight to e4, shouted Andrew, a Cherokee boy, instructing his Appalachian partner during a decisive match. "Good idea," replied Richard, making the suggested move. When their team won the match, they spontaneously hugged, forgetting for a moment the historical tensions between their communities. "Did you see that?" whispered Sarah to Marcus. "I did. And by the parents' faces, they saw it too." The most impressive thing wasn't just the interactions between the children, but how the adults began to behave. Parents who normally wouldn't speak to each other began to comment on the moves, cheer for the same teams, share strategies. In the tournament final, something magical happened. The winning team consisted of 2 Appalachian boys and 2 Cherokee girls. When they were declared champions, the 4 children raised their arms together in a joint celebration. The audience erupted in applause, including parents from both ethnicities applauding together for the first time in decades. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced Marcus, We have our representatives for the trip to the United States. But I want to make an additional proposal. Everyone paid attention. How about we extend the invitation to the parents as well, so they can see firsthand how a society works where differences are celebrated, not feared? The proposal was met with enthusiasm, but also apprehension. Many families had never traveled internationally, let alone together with historical enemies. "I'll go," said Michael, an Appalachian father around 40. "If my son can play chess with Cherokee, I can travel with them." "I'll go too," said Fatima, a Cherokee mother. "I want to see what this United States is like, where everyone lives together in peace." During the following weeks, Marcus and Sarah organized the most unusual trip of their careers, 24 people from the Appalachian region, representing historically conflicting communities, visiting chess schools in the United States. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" asked Daniel during a video call. "We're not sure of anything," admitted Marcus. "But sometimes the only way to find out if something works is by trying." The group's arrival in New York was a tense moment. At the airport, Appalachians and Cherokee still kept to separate groups, talking only among themselves. "It's normal," Emily commented to Sarah. "Real change takes time." The first visit was to the original school in the Upper East Side. The group was welcomed by students of various nationalities and social backgrounds: Americans, Haitians, Syrians, Venezuelans, all learning chess together. "How is this possible?" Michael asked Marcus. "How can so many different people live together like this?" "Because in here, nobody is American, Haitian, or Syrian," Marcus replied. "Everyone is simply a chess player. Nationality stays at the door." During the first practical lesson, something unexpected happened. One of the instructors was a Syrian refugee who spoke a little of the Appalachian language. When she greeted Michael in his language, he was visibly moved. "How long have you been in the United States?" he asked in the Appalachian language. 3 years. I arrived with my family fleeing the war." "And how was the integration?" The woman smiled. "Difficult at first, but when I discovered the chess school, I found a place where I could simply be a person, not a social problem." The conversation was translated for the group, having a special impact on the Cherokee parents, who also knew the drama of refugees. "It's interesting," commented Fatima, "how war forces people to leave their homes, but here they find a new home." "That's exactly it," said the Syrian instructor. "Chess gave me a new identity, based on what I can do, not on what I suffered." During the following week, the group visited schools in different regions of New York. In each one, they found similar stories: people from diverse backgrounds learning to live together through chess. "Uncle Marcus," said Richard on the 5th day of the visit, "can I ask a question?" "Of course. Why do you do this? Why do you care so much about strangers from other countries?" The question touched Marcus deeply. "Richard, do you know what the most important move of my life was?" "What?" "It was when I walked into that chess club in New York 5 years ago and challenged a world champion. Not because I was confident I would win, but because I needed to prove I was worth more than appearances suggested. So I learned that everyone deserves the chance to prove their worth. Everyone deserves a place where they can show their best. You are not strangers to me. You are chess players who haven't fully discovered your potential yet." The explanation resonated not only with Richard, but with the entire group. It was the first time someone saw them not as representatives of conflicting ethnicities, but as individuals with unique potential. On the last day of the visit, Marcus organized an event that would be forever etched in the memory of all present: a tournament where the visitors from the Appalachian region would play against Americans, but the teams would be formed by a draw. "This means," explained Emily, "that you could be playing alongside anyone here. American with Appalachian, Cherokee with Haitian, Syrian with Venezuelan." The draw resulted in a combination no one could have predicted. Michael, the Appalachian father, was paired with Ahmed, the Syrian refugee. Fatima, the Cherokee mother, played alongside Emily, Marcus's daughter. "All right," said Marcus before the tournament began. "Now no one here represents a country or an ethnicity. Everyone represents only themselves and their partner. The tournament was a celebration of diversity and collaboration. Over 3 hours, linguistic, cultural, and historical barriers were temporarily suspended in the name of strategic cooperation. "Ahmed," said Michael during a match, "do you think we should attack on the Queen's flank or strengthen the center?" "Let's strengthen the center first," replied Ahmed. "Then we can decide the attack based on their response." It was a normal strategic conversation between chess partners, but for anyone who knew the history of the Appalachian region, it was almost miraculous, an Appalachian asking a Syrian for advice on how to defeat American opponents. When the tournament ended, the winning team was Fatima and Emily. During the award ceremony, something unexpected happened. "May I speak?" asked Fatima. "Of course," said Marcus. Fatima stepped to the microphone, visibly emotional. "I want to thank all of you," she began, "for showing us something we thought was impossible." Her voice trembled slightly. "I grew up learning that Appalachians were our enemies. My children grew up learning the same thing. But this week I learned that there are Appalachians who are wonderful people, and I learned that my children can be happy playing with them." She paused to compose herself. "I don't know how we will solve all the problems between our peoples, but I know it starts like this, recognizing that on the other side of the border live people, not monsters." The statement was met with a standing ovation. Michael approached Fatima and, in a display of courage that surprised everyone, gave her a respectful hug. "Fatima is right," he said into the microphone. "I came here expecting to confirm my prejudices. Instead, I discovered I was wrong about many things." "How so?" asked Marcus. "I discovered that Cherokee can be excellent partners in chess. I discovered that Americans can be more welcoming than my own neighbors. But mostly I discovered that my children are smarter than I am. They learned in 3 weeks what it took me 40 years to understand." That night, during the farewell party, Marcus observed scenes he would never forget. Appalachian and Cherokee children, exchanging contacts to continue playing chess online, parents from both ethnicities planning future meetings, adults who had arrived as hostile strangers leaving as cautious friends. "Marcus," said Sarah, approaching him, "do you realize we've created something much bigger than a chess school?" "What do you mean?" "We've created a peace laboratory, a place where we test whether human coexistence can overcome historical divisions." Marcus looked around the room where people from 5 different nationalities were talking animatedly about chess strategies and future plans. "And does it work?" "Look around you," Sarah smiled. "What do you think?" 3 months after the trip to the United States, Marcus received a letter that moved him deeply. It was collectively signed by all the families who had participated in the project. "Dear Marcus, Sarah, Emily, and family, we want to report what happened here after our return from the United States. First, our children refused to go back to separate schools. They insisted on studying together, Appalachians and Cherokee in the same classroom. It was difficult to convince the authorities, but we managed. Second, we parents began meeting weekly to continue playing chess. What started as a hobby became a mutual support group for solving community problems. Third, other families in the region became interested in the project. We already have a waiting list for the next group that will visit the United States. But mainly, we want to tell you something you might not have expected. Michael and Fatima decided to open a small business together. A snack bar that operates next to the school where our children study. The name, Checkmate Cafe, a place where everyone is welcome, regardless of background. The business is doing well, but that's not the most important thing. The important thing is that it has become a local symbol that cooperation is possible. We know our small progress does not solve the historical problems of the region, but we proved that change is possible, one family at a time, one child at a time, one chess game at a time. Thank you for teaching us that differences can be bridges, not walls. With affection and eternal gratitude, the families of the Appalachia America Project. Marcus read the letter 3 times, with tears in his eyes. It was proof that his dream had transcended even his own expectations. "Sarah," he called, "you need to read this." After reading the letter, Sarah was equally moved. "Marcus, do you realize what we've achieved?" What? We've proved that education can be more powerful than war, that chess can build bridges where diplomacy has failed, that ordinary people can solve problems that governments consider impossible. Marcus hugged his wife, knowing they had participated in something historic. They hadn't just created a chess school, they had created a replicable model of social reconciliation. "And now?" asked Sarah. "Where do we go from here?" Marcus looked out the window of the house in the Upper East Side, where he saw Daniel coordinating a class for newly arrived refugees, Emily organizing a tournament among children of various nationalities, and Emily giving an interview to international journalists about the Appalachia Project. "Now we continue," he said simply. "We continue proving that the impossible is just a matter of finding the right strategy." And so, what had begun as a chess game between a poor man and a world champion had transformed into a global movement of reconciliation through education. Marcus Thompson, former janitor from New York, had discovered that his true calling was not just playing chess, but using chess as a tool to redesign the possibilities of human coexistence. 10 years after the historic match at the elite chess club, Marcus was where he never imagined he would be, in the Peace Palace in Geneva, Switzerland, receiving the Nobel Peace Prize alongside Sarah and Emily. "The Chess for Everyone program," said the chairman of the Nobel Committee in his statement, "has revolutionized our understanding of how education can be used to resolve social conflicts. In 15 years of existence, it has implemented successful projects in 127 countries, directly served more than 2 million people, and created a replicable model of reconciliation through collaborative learning." In the audience, Marcus saw familiar faces. Daniel and Emily, now adults and international leaders of the movement. Jennifer, who had become one of the project's main funders. Master Charles, representing the global chess community, and dozens of former students who had become educators, diplomats, social entrepreneurs. But the program's most significant impact, the chairman continued, is not in the numbers. It is in the practical demonstration that human differences can be transformed from sources of conflict into sources of mutual enrichment. Marcus stood to receive the award, knowing that this moment represented not just a personal recognition, but the validation of a life philosophy he had learned in the silent early mornings of a commercial building in New York. "Your Excellencies, friends, fellow travelers," he began his speech, "this award belongs to every person who once believed they could be more than their circumstances allowed." His voice was firm, carrying the experience of years speaking to international audiences, but it still held the humility of the man who had discovered chess by watching lessons through a window. "When I entered that chess club in New York 10 years ago, I just wanted to prove I knew how to play. I didn't imagine I was starting a journey that would teach me that chess is much more than a game. It is a perfect metaphor for life in society." He paused, searching for Sarah and Emily in the front row. "In chess, the pieces are different. Each has unique capabilities, specific moves, particular value. But they can only win when they work together, protecting each other, creating collaborative strategies. A queen alone, no matter how powerful, never wins a game. She needs the pawns, the knights, the rooks." The analogy resonated with the international audience, which included diplomats, educators, and social leaders from all continents. Human society functions the same way. Each person has unique talents, particular experiences, specific perspectives. Our strength does not come from being all the same, but from learning to combine our differences in a harmonious and productive way. Marcus looked at the television cameras, knowing he was being broadcast to billions of people. "This prize is not mine, it is not Sarah's, it is not Emily's. It belongs to every child who learned to see the world beyond the prejudices they inherited. It belongs to every adult who had the courage to question their own certainties. It belongs to every community that chose cooperation over destructive competition." His voice grew more emotional. "It belongs to my ex-wife Jennifer, who forgave me for being an imperfect husband, but who supported me when she discovered I could be a better father. It belongs to my children, Daniel and Emily, who taught me that family is rebuilt based on present love, not lost past." Marcus took a deep breath before continuing. It belongs to Emily, who at 10 years old showed me that age does not determine wisdom, and who today, at 24, leads peace initiatives in more than 50 countries. It belongs to every volunteer teacher who dedicates weekends to teaching unknown children. It belongs to every parent who overcame prejudices to give their children better opportunities. The audience was completely silent, absorbed by the raw honesty of the speech. But most of all, this award belongs to all of you who have proven that change is possible, that in every school, company, family, community, it is possible to create spaces where differences are celebrated, not feared, where collaboration replaces competition, where education liberates instead of divides. Marcus stepped closer to the microphone. The movement we created began with a simple question. Does intelligence have a social class? The answer was no. But we discovered more important questions. Does dignity have a nationality? Does human potential have a color? Do dreams have an age? Does peace have a price? He made one final pause before concluding. The answer to all those questions remains no. And as long as that is true, our work will continue, because to educate is not just to transmit knowledge, it is to liberate potential. It is to prove that every person carries within them capabilities that can transform not only their own life, but the lives of everyone around them. The speech ended with a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. Marcus embraced Sarah and Emily, knowing that moment represented not an end, but a new beginning. In the months following the Nobel Prize, the Chess for Everyone program received support like never before. Governments offered funding, universities proposed partnerships, international organizations requested consultations. "Marcus," said Sarah one morning, after reviewing dozens of proposals, "we are facing an important choice." "Which one?" "We can accept all these offers, create a gigantic organization, completely institutionalize the movement, or we can keep our current size and focus on quality instead of quantity." It was the same dilemma they had faced several times during the journey: how to grow without losing its soul. "What do you think?" asked Marcus. "I think the answer lies in the wrong question we are asking." "How so?" "We are asking whether we should grow or not grow. The right question is, how can we grow while keeping our essence?" Marcus smiled. After 10 years together, Sarah still surprised him with insights that seemed obvious only after being verbalized. And what is the answer? Total decentralization. Instead of creating one giant organization, we create thousands of small organizations. Every school, every project, every initiative maintains complete autonomy. We offer methodology, support, connection, but never control. The idea was revolutionary: a global movement without a power center, an international network without a rigid hierarchy, a universal methodology with infinitely varied local applications. "Can this work?" asked Marcus. "It can, but it requires something most organizations cannot do: to trust people completely." Like in chess, Marcus realized, each piece has total autonomy to move, but they all play for the same objective. Exactly. And when there is real mutual trust, external control is not necessary. The decision to completely decentralize the movement was announced at an international conference that gathered representatives from all the program's projects. The initial reaction was surprise, then enthusiasm. "You are giving us total freedom?" asked the coordinator of the African schools. "We are recognizing the freedom you have always had," replied Marcus. "The only difference is that now it's official." Emily, who had become the movement's main international coordinator, explained how the new structure would work. Each project will maintain its local identity, its specific methods, its regional partnerships, but all will remain connected through the common philosophy, using chess as a tool for social inclusion and human development. "And if some projects stray from the original philosophy?" asked a European coordinator. "Then we'll find out if our philosophy is truly solid enough to stand on its own," replied Sarah. "If it is, it will be preserved naturally. If it's not, it needs to be reworked." The answer demonstrated a level of organizational maturity that impressed even outside observers. It was an organization that had learned to trust its principles so deeply that it could relinquish direct control. 5 years after decentralization, Marcus received reports confirming the strategy had worked. The movement continued to grow, but now organically, adapting to the local needs of each region. In the United States, the schools had integrated into the public education system. In Africa, they had become multifunctional community centers. In Asia, they had developed specific methods for integrating different ethnic groups. In Europe, they were being used to integrate refugees and immigrants. Each region found its own way to apply the principles, commented Daniel during a family meeting. It's as if we planted a seed that adapts to any soil. And the best part, added Emily, is that we don't have to travel so much anymore. We can focus on family and personal life, knowing the movement continues to grow on its own. Marcus, now 65, smiled upon hearing this. For a long time he had worried about being indispensable to the project. Now he realized the greatest success of any leadership was to become unnecessary. "Marcus," said Sarah, pointing to a letter on the table, "an interesting piece of mail arrived today." Marcus opened the letter and saw it was from the Elite Chess Club of New York, where it had all begun. "Dear Marcus, 10 years have passed since your historic match against Sarah at our club. We would like to invite you to a special celebration, the inauguration of the Marcus Thompson Memorial, a permanent space dedicated to your history and the philosophy of the Chess for Everyone movement. The memorial will include the original board where you played, photos from the entire journey, testimonies from people whose lives were transformed by the program, and a public library with works on chess and inclusive education. But most of all, we want it to be a space where future generations can learn that a single determined person can change the world, one move at a time. We hope for your presence at the inauguration, scheduled for May 15th, exactly 10 years after our first meeting. With admiration and respect, Richard Henderson, Director, Elite Chess Club of New York." Marcus finished reading with misty eyes. It was the closing of a circle in a way he had never imagined possible. "They want to create a memorial about my life," he said to Sarah. "And how do you feel about that?" Marcus was silent for a moment, processing the emotions. "I feel that my story isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who believed they could be more than their circumstances allowed. It belongs to all who proved that talent has no address, age, social class, or nationality. So shall we accept the invitation?" "We will, but with one condition." "What?" Marcus smiled, and Sarah recognized the expression he made when he was about to propose something unexpectedly generous. "I want them to turn the memorial into an active school, not just a place to remember the past, but a place to create the future." The inauguration of the Marcus Thompson Memorial was an event that brought together hundreds of people touched by the Chess for Everyone movement. Former students who had become teachers, parents who had overcome prejudices, international coordinators, authorities, journalists, but mostly ordinary people who wanted to thank for the opportunities they had received. "This memorial," said Marcus in his speech, "is not about me. It's about all of you. Every person here today has proven that change is possible, that education transforms, that human dignity is independent of social origin." He pointed to the original chessboard, now preserved in a glass display case. That board saw a game between two individuals, but it witnessed the birth of a movement that now connects millions of people across all continents. Marcus paused, observing the faces in the audience. Emily, now 29 and a mother of 2, Daniel and Emily, both respected leaders in the field of international education, Jennifer, who had become one of the movement's primary financial supporters, former students who had become doctors, engineers, teachers, social entrepreneurs. What we have learned in these 10 years is simple. Every person is a unique piece on an infinite board, each with specific moves, particular potential, unique capabilities. Our work is not to standardize people, but to help them discover their own special moves. His voice grew more emotional. And when people discover their own worth, something magical happens. They begin to recognize the worth of others. Prejudices disappear, barriers dissolve, communities grow stronger, families rebuild. Nations learn to coexist, Marcus concluded by pointing to a plaque at the entrance of the memorial, where the phrase that had become the movement's unofficial motto was written, "In every person, there is a unique potential waiting to be discovered. To educate is to create the conditions for that potential to flourish." This memorial will be a place where future generations can learn that it doesn't matter where you come from, how you dress, how much money you have, what language you speak. What matters is your willingness to learn, to grow, and to help others do the same. The ceremony ended with something no one expected. Marcus challenged anyone present to a game of chess, exactly as he had done 10 years before. "This time," he smiled, "I accept challenges from anyone, regardless of experience, age, or origin." The line of volunteers stretched across the entire hall. Marcus spent the next 4 hours playing with 8-year-old children, 80-year-old grandparents, former students, officials, journalists. Each game lasted at most 15 minutes, time enough for a personal conversation and a few instructive moves. "Uncle Marcus," said a girl of about 10 during her game, "is it true you were poor when you started playing chess?" "Yes, I was, little one, very poor." "And now are you rich?" Marcus thought about the question for a moment. "Now I am something different from rich. I am fulfilled." "What's the difference?" "Rich is when you have a lot of money. Fulfilled is when you make a difference in people's lives. Money can run out. Fulfillment lasts forever." The girl made her move and watched Marcus think about his response. "Uncle Marcus, when I grow up, I want to be just like you." "No," Marcus said gently. "When you grow up, I want you to be just like yourself. Only better. Every person needs to find their own way to make a difference in the world." The answer perfectly summarized the philosophy that had guided Marcus's entire journey. Not to create followers, but to inspire original leaders. When the last challenger finished their game, it was already night. The memorial was empty except for Marcus's family and a few close friends. "Marcus," said Emily, approaching him, "can I make a confession?" "Of course." "When I was little, I thought you were a hero. Now that I'm an adult, I've discovered I was right, but for the wrong reason." "How so?" "I thought you were a hero because you knew how to play chess very well. Now I know you are a hero because you taught the world how to play life better." Marcus hugged Emily, knowing he had received the greatest compliment possible, the recognition that his mission had been understood and would be continued by other generations. "Emily, do you know what the next move is?" "What?" "Teaching your children to play chess, not so they become champions, but so they become better people. And they will teach their children, and so on, endlessly." "Like a game that never ends?" "Like a game that always renews itself," corrected Marcus. "Each generation discovers new moves, develops new strategies, finds new ways to transform the game into a better life." That night, walking through the gardens of the Upper East Side beside Sarah, Marcus reflected on the extraordinary journey they had lived. "Sarah, if you could go back to the day of our first game, would you change anything?" "Yes," she answered without hesitation. "What?" "I would have given you a hug at the end of the game, instead of just shaking your hand." Marcus laughed. "Why?" "Because I already knew in that moment that you had changed my life forever. I just didn't know yet that we were going to change so many people's lives together." They sat on a garden bench, watching the stars on a clear New York night. "Marcus, do you still dream about anything?" "I dream that one day, somewhere in the world, two people from completely different backgrounds will sit down before a chessboard and discover they are more alike than they imagined, and that this discovery will inspire other people to do the same, and others, and others." "And do you believe that will happen?" Marcus looked at the starry sky, then at the house where Daniel was helping the kids with homework, where Emily was preparing a presentation on inclusive education, where Emily was planning the next international project. "It's already happening," he said simply. "In every school we create, in every family that rebuilds itself, in every prejudice that disappears, in every child who discovers their potential. The game continues, and it always will." And so Marcus Thompson, who had started as an unemployed janitor on a quiet New York dawn, ended his story as an inspiration for millions of people who learned that every ending is just the beginning of a new game. Every obstacle is just an opportunity to develop more creative strategies, and every person carries within them the capacity to transform not only their own life, but the entire world. The story had come to an end, but the movement it inspired would continue forever, one transformative move at a time. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this incredible story of overcoming and transformation. Where are you listening from? Do you believe Marcus made the right decisions throughout his journey? Which moment moved you the most? Leave your sincere reflections on this story of how a simple man managed to change the world through education and chess in the comments. We will be delighted to read your opinion. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories like this one.